On a scorching Arizona road, a young disabled girl loses all hope when her wheelchair breaks, until a poor mechanic stops to help, and a billionaire woman arrives with a kindness that changes everything. This is the story of how two strangers from opposite worlds give her a second chance she never saw coming. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Emily sat on the side of a dusty Arizona road, her wheelchair tilted slightly on the uneven pavement. The scorching sun bore down on her pale skin, making her arms tingle with heat. She stared at the horizon, watching cars pass by in a blur, each one taking people to somewhere better, somewhere she would never reach. Her wheelchair, once her trusted companion, had broken beyond repair just hours ago. Panic bubbled in her chest, mixing with a deep, gnawing despair she had tried so hard to ignore. She felt utterly alone. Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she thought about her life. She'd always been different, born with a disability that made walking impossible. People had always stared, sometimes with pity, sometimes with curiosity, and sometimes with open judgment. Friends had come and gone, often unable to handle the challenges she faced. Now, on this road, she felt the weight of all that loneliness pressing down on her. She wondered if anyone would ever truly see her beyond her wheelchair. The heat made her feel dizzy, and the distant hum of traffic was almost hypnotic. Emily tried to remember better times, moments when she felt alive and capable, but the memories seemed faint, distant, and fragile. She had dreams of college, of traveling, of living independently, but they all seemed impossible now. Every plan, every hope felt like it had been shattered along with her wheelchair. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not meant to move forward. Maybe this is all there is for me." Just as she was about to slump completely, a pickup truck appeared in the distance. It was old and rusty, its engine coughing and wheezing, but it was approaching steadily. Emily squinted, unsure if the driver would even notice her. Most people didn't. Most people passed by without a second thought, and she had long since stopped expecting kindness from strangers. Yet, as the truck slowed and parked beside her, a man stepped out, wiping grease from his hands on a ragged cloth. He looked young, maybe mid-20s, with a genuine warm smile that made Emily's chest tighten with cautious hope. "Hey," he called gently, not too close to startle her. "Are you okay? Looks like your chair's broken." Emily blinked, unsure how to respond. She hadn't expected anyone to stop. People usually ignored her as if she were invisible, yet there was something different about this man, something in the way he leaned slightly. He forward, not in pity but in concern. I think it's beyond repair," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The mechanic nodded, crouching beside her wheelchair. "I've fixed worse," he said with a grin. "Name's Jake. Don't worry, we'll get you moving again." Emily studied him carefully. His clothes were worn, patched in places, and his hands were stained with oil, but his eyes held a sincerity she hadn't seen in a long time. She hesitated, unsure if she could trust him. But something in his calm confidence, the way he examined her chair with careful hands, made her feel that maybe, just maybe, help had finally arrived. Jake worked quickly, pulling tools from the back of his truck and laying them out on a rag. He didn't rush, yet his hands moved with efficiency and experience. As he tightened screws and replaced broken parts, he talked to Emily, telling her about his life growing up in a small town nearby, learning to fix things out of necessity. His words were simple, but they had a comforting rhythm, filling the silence and easing the tension in Emily's chest. For the first time that day, she felt a small spark of hope. She watched as Jake bent over the wheelchair, examining each joint, each wheel, as if he were piecing together a puzzle. The sun continued to beat down, but she barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on him and the tiny miracle he seemed capable of performing. He hummed softly, muttering technical instructions to himself, yet his presence was steady and grounding. Emily realized how long it had been since someone had cared so completely about her struggle. It wasn't pity or obligation, it was genuine concern. After a while, Jake stepped back, wiping his hands on a cloth again. "All right, let's see if this works," he said with a hopeful grin. Emily hesitated, then placed her hands on the wheels, feeling the movement respond as if it had never been broken. She tested it carefully, inch by inch, her heart pounding with disbelief. The chair moved smoothly, almost gliding over the uneven road. She looked up at Jake, her eyes wide, and he gave her a thumbs up. A laugh escaped her lips, a sound she hadn't realized she had missed. For the first time in hours, maybe even days, Emily felt a flicker of freedom. It was small, fragile, but it was real. She realized that this stranger, a young mechanic with nothing but his skills and good intentions, had given her more than just a working wheelchair. He had given her a sense that she could move forward again. Her dreams, though still distant, no longer felt impossible. She could see a path ahead, however faint, and it was enough to make her heart beat a little faster. As Emily began to roll the wheelchair slowly down the road, testing its movement, she felt a strange combination of gratitude and disbelief. Jake followed, carrying the tools he had used, his presence a quiet reassurance. They didn't speak much, but the silence was comfortable, filled with mutual understanding. Emily realized that hope often comes in unexpected forms and from unexpected people. She had been ready to give up, to accept the road as the limit of her life, but this young mechanic had shown her a different possibility, a path forward she hadn't dared imagine. Emily's wheelchair glided smoothly along the sun-baked Arizona road, the small repairs holding stronger than she had imagined. Jake walked beside her, occasionally adjusting a bolt or tightening a wheel, making sure the chair was safe for her to continue. His hands were steady, his movements deliberate, showing a skill born from years of necessity and hard work. Emily felt a strange sense of relief, mixed with awe. She had never met anyone like him, someone who treated her not as fragile or limited, but as capable. With each turn of the wheels, a tiny spark of hope began to grow inside her chest. As they moved along the roadside, Jake began sharing stories from his own life. He told her about the small garage he had inherited from his father, a place filled with broken engines and old cars, and how he had learned to fix almost anything just to survive. Emily listened intently, captivated by his resilience and positivity. He wasn't wealthy, and his hands bore the permanent stains of work and grit, but his heart seemed immeasurably large. She felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years, a connection that went beyond words, built on mutual trust and shared struggle. Emily cautiously tested the wheelchair on a small incline, and Jake followed closely, guiding her and making slight adjustments as she rolled. Her confidence grew with every motion, and a genuine smile appeared on her face. It was the first time she had felt mobility without fear in weeks. "You're doing great," Jake encouraged, and clapping her lightly on the shoulder. Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. For so long she had been invisible, ignored by the world. But here was someone who not only saw her, but wanted to help her reclaim her independence. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the road was interrupted by the sleek purr of a black luxury car approaching. It glided to a stop nearby, and Emily instinctively felt wary. Luxury cars and wealthy strangers rarely stopped for someone like her. But this time, the woman who stepped out seemed different. She was poised, confident, and carried herself with a sense of purpose. Her designer suit shimmered slightly in the sunlight, and her presence exuded authority. Emily noticed the subtle warmth in her eyes as she approached. She introduced herself as Victoria, a philanthropist known for her work with disability programs across the country. Victoria knelt beside Emily, carefully examining the wheelchair. "I've been visiting Arizona for a charity program," she explained softly, "and I noticed you here. I wanted to see if there was any way I could help." Emily's heart raced. She had never experienced generosity on this scale, especially from someone so influential. Yet there was no condescension in Victoria's voice, only sincerity. Emily glanced at Jake, who simply nodded, acknowledging Victoria's presence but giving her space. There was an unspoken understanding. This encounter could change everything. Victoria listened attentively as Emily described her life and the obstacles she faced daily. She asked thoughtful questions about school, family, and her dreams. Emily felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. Victoria then turned to Jake, examining the repairs he had made to the wheelchair. She nodded in approval, impressed by his skill. "You've done a remarkable job," she said, her voice warm. Emily watched the exchange, realizing that this unlikely duo, one wealthy, one struggling, might together provide something she had never experienced, a chance at a new beginning. Over the next several hours, Jake and Victoria worked in tandem. Jake focused on the mechanical adjustments, ensuring the wheelchair could handle rough terrain and long distances. Victoria used her resources to bring advanced mobility aids and technology, enhancing Emily's independence. Emily observed, fascinated, as Victoria coordinated logistics and funding, her expertise in philanthropy apparent in every decision. Jake's hands-on knowledge complemented Victoria's strategic planning perfectly, and Emily realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. Two people from completely different worlds uniting for a single purpose. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the road, Emily tested her upgraded wheelchair. It moved effortlessly, with a smoothness and precision that made her heart leap. She felt the thrill of independence again, a sensation she thought had been lost forever. Tears blurred her vision, but they were tears of joy this time. Jake smiled proudly, while Victoria watched with satisfaction. Emily had never expected to encounter such kindness, and yet here she was, surrounded by two individuals who genuinely cared about her future. The road no longer seemed endless. It felt like a gateway. Jake shared practical tips, showing Emily how to navigate curbs, small obstacles, and inclines safely. Victoria offered encouragement, reminding her that she had limitless potential and deserved opportunities just like anyone else. Emily absorbed every word, feeling her confidence swell. She began to imagine herself pursuing college, traveling, and engaging with the world on her terms. For the first time, the future seemed not frightening, but exciting. The combination of Jake's skill and Victoria's support had transformed a bleak, lonely day into a turning point she would never forget. By the time twilight settled, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The dusty road no longer symbolized limitation. It represented the start of her journey. Propelled by hope, skill, and unexpected generosity, Jake and Victoria had given her more than mobility. They had given her belief in herself, a rare gift for someone who had often been overlooked. Emily realized that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple into monumental change, and that sometimes life's most profound miracles arrive through the most unlikely partnerships. The weeks that followed brought changes Emily had never imagined. Victoria arranged for her to stay temporarily in a comfortable apartment near Phoenix while her paperwork for college enrollment moved forward. Jake visited often, always checking the wheelchair, always making sure she felt safe and supported. Emily found herself waking each morning with a sense of purpose she had never known before. The walls that once closed in on her life began to widen, offering possibilities instead of fears. She spent hours practicing navigation, strengthening her arms, and learning to trust her own body again. During this time, Victoria introduced Emily to specialized therapists, technology consultants, and mentors who had once been in similar circumstances. Each meeting left Emily feeling stronger, smarter, and more capable. She learned how to use her new adaptive wheelchair, a piece of equipment so advanced that she felt like she had stepped into a new world. The digital interface allowed her to adjust speed, stability, and comfort levels. She could finally move freely, smoothly, without fear of sudden breakdowns. Transformation was nothing short of life-changing, both physically and mentally. One afternoon, Jake arrived with a smile brighter than usual. He announced that he had repaired a used van that could be customized for wheelchair accessibility. Emily couldn't believe it. She watched as he explained every modification he had planned: ramps, secure locks, hand controls, and emergency systems. His voice carried pride but also affection, a genuine desire to give her independence beyond the limits of sidewalks and buildings. Emily felt tears well in her eyes. She had spent years feeling trapped by distance, but now the world suddenly felt reachable. Victoria, too, remained a constant presence. Despite her wealth and busy schedule, she treated Emily not as a project but as a person, with respect, warmth, and sincerity. She invited Emily to her foundation's events, where she met influential figures advocating for disability rights. Emily learned how powerful her voice could be. She began sharing her story, her hardships, her fears, and now her transformations. People listened, people cared. For the first time, Emily felt she belonged in spaces she had once assumed were forever out of reach. The confidence she gained surprised even herself. Soon, the day came when Emily moved into her college dorm in California. Jake drove her in the newly modified van, while Victoria flew ahead to make sure. Everything was arranged for a smooth transition. The campus buzzed with energy, students laughing, walking, skating, rushing to classes. Emily felt nervous but excited. She had dreamed of studying psychology, eager to help others facing emotional and physical challenges. As she looked around the campus, she realized she was no longer the girl stranded on a dusty roadside. She was a student, a future professional, ready to create a meaningful life. Jake carried her bags into the dorm, refusing to leave until he knew everything worked perfectly. "If anything breaks, you call me," he joked, tapping the side of her wheelchair with a familiar confidence. Emily laughed, touched by his loyalty. Victoria arrived shortly after, giving Emily a gentle hug and reminding her that the foundation would cover any academic needs she might have. Emily felt wrapped in support from two very different but equally important pillars in her life. They weren't just helpers. They had become family in their own extraordinary way. That evening, after Jake and Victoria left, Emily explored the campus by herself. She rolled down the smooth pathways, admiring the oak trees, tall buildings, and distant ocean breeze. The world felt huge, breathtaking, and open. She passed groups of students sitting on the lawn, studying or joking around. For a moment, she worried she wouldn't fit in. But then she remembered the strength she had built, the courage she had rediscovered, and the people who believed in her. With each movement of her wheelchair, she felt a renewed sense of belonging. This was her new chapter, and she embraced it fully. As the months passed, Emily flourished academically and socially. She joined disability advocacy groups, volunteered at local clinics, and even became a speaker at one of Victoria's charity events. Her story touched hearts everywhere she went. Jake visited when he could, each time amazed at her growth. Their bond deepened, built not on dependency, but on respect and genuine care. Victoria continued guiding her, offering opportunities to intern at organizations that aligned with Emily's goals. Life had become a beautiful blend of independence, friendship, and achievements Emily never knew she was capable of. One late afternoon, Emily took a solo ride along the Pacific Coast Highway. The ocean shimmered beside her, waves crashing softly against the rocks. She inhaled deeply, feeling the salty air fill her lungs. In that moment, she realized how far she had come, from a broken wheelchair on a hot Arizona road to rolling freely along one of the most breathtaking routes in the country. She thought of Jake's kindness, Victoria's generosity, and her own courage that had carried her through countless silent battles. She was no longer trapped by her circumstances. She had broken free. As she watched the sun dip below the horizon, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. She whispered softly, "I made it." And she had, far beyond anything she once believed possible. Her life had been touched by two people from entirely different worlds, a poor mechanic with a heart of gold and a billionaire woman with compassion stronger than wealth. Together, they had helped her reclaim her dreams and rebuild her spirit. But Emily knew the truth. She had carried herself forward too. Hope had returned, stronger than ever, and her journey was only beginning.